Once you logged into the back end of your website and you've directed via components to, Get Bibles control panel, you'd see that there is a place called Booknames. Now in Booknames, we have set up so far uh, your default English book names for each book of the Bible. And we've also set up for another language called Afrikaans, which is my language, which I speak. And you'll see it's the translation we set it up for is AOV, which is the Afrikaans old translation, old version. And we've set up and also we've got two Afrikaans versions, the AOV and the ANV. And we've said for both of them, we've set up the basically the book names in relation to the number of that book. You see, each book has a number. The first being Genesis, and then the first book in the New Testament is Matthew, which is 40. The last book, and so every book has a number, and so you must just make sure that these numbers correspond to the actual book that you set up. The books are according to numbers. You can use the King James as the example, or to make sure that your relations is correct. And so once you've installed the Bible onto your website that you want to give new names to, obviously if you want to see what Bibles is installed, you go to Installed Bibles. There will be a list of all the Bibles that are currently installed on your website. And they have what is seen here. The version is an abbreviative for each version, and that is the target that you need to remember. So for example, if you wanted to set up the Bible version, book names for Hungarian Bible, you'd use that abbreviative. Okay, so copy, and then you would go to back to book names. If you haven't got Bibles installed, or maybe just got the King James installed, we have a video on our website on how to install Bibles. If you go to support main component, you would see that there is change to local API. I would suggest you watch that video, as well as local install version, that you watch both of these videos, and they will be very helpful in giving you an understanding of how to install your own local version of any Bible. And then there's also instructions here, installing advice, and how to set up a Linux server. We currently do not have instructions for the Microsoft servers, but I'm sure if you use this information and give them to your server provider, they most probably be able to exert from these information the necessary changes that must be made. Okay, now back to adding the correct book names for that translation. You'd go back to book names, and you would click new, and you would see that there is a place for the version code name, which is that one we copied. You need to set the number of chapters that is in the book. If you do not know what that number is, you can open an existing version of the King James of that book, and in our system the King James version Genesis has 50 chapters, so you would put in there 50. Then the book number you'd see is number 1 for Genesis, so you put in 1. And then that specific translation's or version of the Bible, the name that is used for Genesis. Now, you also have a place called Book Aliases. Now, Book Aliases is basically what is very important to remember when you set up these aliases is that no other book in this specific version should have any of these aliases be the same. So it must be completely unique to this book of this translation. Any alias that you use in here can then be used in the API request when you do a request for scripture from this Get Bibles API. If you do not know what the API is or how to use it, that doesn't really matter. You still need to set up these aliases for the internal working of the app page where the Bible is displayed on the front of your site. Makes use of these aliases to correctly query the database and display the naming of the different books and so forth. Again, an example of how these aliases can be set. We can look at an existing book that has been set up, Genesis of the King James Version, and we look at the aliases we've set up. We basically see that we just use the whole book name as the first alias, then a very short version of 2 letters for the third, and then a third one with 3 letters. You see the third one has capitals. You can actually ignore that. Capitalization doesn't make any difference. We actually downsize these the moment we start working with them. And you only need to add compulsory these first 2 aliases, but you can add more, and this is all then nice ways of for the system to recognize that specific book when you type it either in displaying. Let me give you an example. When you go to support loading scripture, you'll land on a page which we explain how to load the scripture in the article with our plugin that you can download here under downloads. A plugin that basically gives you the ability to load scripture inside of your text of articles and so forth. Now here is some demonstration, and here you can download the plugin. But as you can see, you would type first John 3:16, basically with this added class to this specific string, and then you'd get that response. You see, if you hover over it. Now, that word John there is what is defined here in book alias. So that means whatever you would like to use in your text as identifiable to Get Bible, so that we can render this scripture like that for this translation. Again, translation is defined by this bracket. Here we explain that, but there is a default in the plugin where you can set the default translation to always be at the moment it is set to King James, but you can set that default to whatever translation you like. And so here we change the default from King James to the Afrikaans version with this little declaration. And so that is why we need to make sure that these aliases do not conflict with other book names, because otherwise the system will run into a crash. It won't be able to understand how can there be 2 of the same keys for the specific book. So that's how you do the changing. I'm gonna basically then use this as the first, and use the same for the second and for the third, and I think think that's all I'll need to do for this uh, Hungarian translation of Genesis. And you can click save and new to do the next book, or you could click save and close, um, or you could just click save and then do changes and then close or whatever. But that's basically how you set up a book for a specific version. Make sure that this copy that you put in here doesn't have any extra space before or after it, and so the number as well. And well, basically with each of these, make sure that all your information is correct, and do ensure that if you start doing a translation, that you do finish it, basically adding all of the books. You can't just add some. The system will not handle that very well at the moment. There's also this idea that I've come up with to help the rest of the community, and that is, if any of you do translate any of these books, there's another way for you to do it instead of this way that I've just shown you, which basically puts the control in your hands. You can do it, and it's just for your website, and no one else will actually share in the effort that you've made. But if you're willing to share the effort and let all of us benefit from it, you could put this information in a spreadsheet, and then just email the spreadsheet to info@getbible.net, and we will add that whole set of translation names for the books to our default package, which we then send out, so that everyone else that installs the Get Bible component will immediately have those books already set, like we've done with the Afrikaans. And so how you would do that is, in a spreadsheet, you would use the name, book name, book number, version code name, number of chapters as the heading at the very top of the first line. It doesn't matter the order that you put it in. And then the book alias, you would just call book alias, and the next column, another one would be also book alias. So if I can give you a quick example of what I mean, you basically have it set up: book name, book number, version code, and then book alias, book alias, book alias. And then underneath here, you would just add the information like that. Copy, put that there. Oh wait, sorry, that's with alias, so obviously that must be there, but it's the same as the book name. Okay, and that will be number 1, and wait, sorry, that's 50, and then GE and GN. That will be basically for Genesis. And so you would do all the books, all down to the 66th book, and you'd save that and email it to me, and I will add it to the latest version of Get Bible, and I will email you back a package with that information, all of it ready in the database. That the moment you install it, it will be in the database. Unfortunately, if you already have Get Bible installed on your website, it will be a little bit more advanced to get the information into your database. If that is the case, then tell that to me in your email, and I will there give you instructions on what to do, and in fact most probably send you an extra package with which you can then get the data into your database. But if it's a fresh install and you haven't really done much on it, that you would afraid of being, going lost, I'll most probably encourage you to simply uninstall Get Bible and install it from this new package, which has this Bible book translation names in it already, so that the moment you install it, it will add it to your database by default. Okay, well, that's basically how to add more books to the Get Bible component in relation to your specific version requirements. I hope it's helpful. Please send me a mail if you're still having trouble. Thank you.